What family secret has been kept away from only you? And how did you find out about it? My brother and I learned as young kids that our mom was married before meeting our dad. Her husband died in Vietnam or something military related. She was only 21. It blew our minds that we may not have existed. I now see why we were not told about this. It also explains the mysterious birthday cards we received from grandma's neighbor who was actually the mother of the deceased. I burned down the backyard and everyone knew it was me. I was 7 to 8, no babysitter, experimenting with matches and cotton. It's flammable BTW. Started a backyard grass fire, no hose, called mom crying that hobos threw lit matches over the fence and I tried to extinguish it. For 22 years they let me believe I'd gotten away with it. They believed me. Mom faked a babysitter. Neighbors whispered but it all died down. Turns out this whole ducking time they've known I burnt down the yard. The firemen knew it, neighbors, parents. They just let me believe it and kept it a hilarious inside joke amongst themselves until one night I go to admit it. My most important confession. Decades old confession. They cackled with laughter. Got a birthday card on my 17th birthday from Christine. Ask my adoptive mum who Christine is. Oh, that's your sister. Only living biological relative. Didn't know she existed lol. My sister was raped as a teenager and my dad almost killed the guy. Fortunately my dad didn't and never had charges against him for it. I don't know what happened to the guy. She's older than me by 6 years so obviously my family couldn't explain what happened to little me. I overheard what happened late at night when everyone thought I was asleep. I had to look up what grape is in the dictionary. I don't know if it quite counts as a family secret but here goes. We had a cockroach problem when I was a kid. We kept putting down traps, spraying crap around the house, never could figure out where they were coming from. Time rolls around, they decide I need a new mattress for my waterbed. We drain it, my dad goes to pull up the mattress and starts loudly freaking out. Now, I was in a separate room, so they thought I didn't hear. But the roach nest was under my waterbed mattress. It had a pinhole leak which created the perfect environment, apparently. Since I wasn't in the room, all I was told is that something went wrong when he was draining it and water sprayed everywhere, but I heard them talking quietly about how that must be why I had so many sleeping problems, having cockroaches crawling on me while I was asleep. I try not to think about it often. Edit. It occurs to me, you guys are probably picturing those giant kind of cockroaches you always see in movies and whatnot. I'm in a more rural area, and the roaches here are significantly smaller, maybe a quarter to half inch at the most. Might make it slightly less icky. The real reason my aunt moved back to my hometown was she was briefly kidnapped by some bad guy she'd displeased in her work as a judge. This guy held her at gunpoint and told her she could either leave town in the next 24 hours or be taken back in. I was like 8 at the time, so everyone just told me she moved back because she missed us all. I found out about it when my brother and I were rehashing old stuff 10 years later. I had my best friend die when I was 10. It was my very first experience of death. It changed me. I didn't make friends easily after that. Anyways, my parents told me she had accidentally hung herself while pretend playing dog with a leash around her neck. Then when I was 17, I was participating in a church youth group lesson that was about grape. The lady teaching told the story of a 10-year-old girl she once knew whose father beat and raped her, then she later committed suicide. Turns out it was my friend and I ran away crying. When the lady confronted my parents about lying to me, they said they were never planning on telling me the truth. Edit. I wish my parents had told me the truth. While the idea of keeping a child sheltered and safe from the everyday reality of life is a nice thing, it also gives them a false sense of reality. In hindsight, after discovering the truth, I could see that everybody was walking on eggshells at the funeral and the situation wasn't at all what I thought it was. There were too many signs, but as a light-to innocent child I couldn't put the pieces together. It pained me more to learn and understand what really happened as a young adult. Also, the lie made me distrust my parents more, and to figure it out when I was 17 made all the years leading up to then seem like a lie too. Yes, I understand why they lied, but to this day it is difficult to talk to them. Now I'm 24. My mum and dad split up when I was about 4. From 4 until about 12, I had conversations with him over the phone, wanted to go visit, but wasn't allowed because I was too young. But my brother had been to visit when he was my age. Turns out that dad was found getting sexually inappropriate with me, which is why I was never allowed to visit. I don't remember it, but it explains a lot of personal quirks. And all of my family know, but no one would talk about it until I was 12, and I directly asked my mum questions she couldn't avoid. The thing that pisses me off about it most is that they let me spend more time exposed to him without making sure I knew he was dangerous. Nothing too crazy, but I found out my mom cheated on my dad before marriage and a second time when I was 3 years old. Took her about 15 years to confess to my dad. Dad is now filing for divorce. Grandpa was an alcoholic and that's why he slept all the time and was late picking me up from school when we lived with my grandparents. My mom only told me after I complained about a decade later. Explained some other weird shit he did too. My mother wanted to have an abortion when she got pregnant with me, but my father persuaded her, only to start cheating on her a year after I was born. My mother told me about this while we were fighting one time during my teenage years. They got divorced when I was about 4 years old, and I haven't had any contact with him for most of my life. The irony of my existence. Edit. Wow people, I did not expect this. Thank you all for the nice words. Sorry if I don't get to reply to all. Happy thoughts all. Hug. My grandpa fathered 2 children out of affairs. The youngest one is my age. My mom told me when she was drinking one night. My grandma still doesn't know about the youngest. Dad didn't have a heart attack, he committed suicide. I learned this from one of his oldest friends. My mom looked like a deer in the headlights when I asked her about it. My father's siblings and their families don't talk to us anymore since my grandmother's, their mom, passing in 2009. I was told that they were just too busy working and doing their own thing to hang out like we all used to, but on the off chance I would see them, I would always be the first and only one to say hi and try and catch up. About the time I was 18 in 2014, I'm currently 22, I was told that the reason they didn't talk to us anymore is that they turned their backs on my grandmother when she was dying and about to lose her house. So my father stepped up and tried to convince his siblings to help save the house and help with the medical bills. They turned their backs on her and my father, so my father ended up buying the house and restored it. When my grandmother passed, my father's siblings tried to claim their piece of mom's money, even though they didn't do anything for her when she was dying. They refused to associate with my father, mother, sister and me. To this day I did one. Holy shit, I never expected to see so many similar stories like mine. If I have any advice for anyone reading this who is going through something similar, or think they may go through something similar, it's to get everything in writing. Bank statements, medical bills, receipts, even a written statement of the family member you are helping stating they are okay with the terms of the situation you find yourself in. I had 2. The first was that my grandfather I grew up with was not my biological grandfather. I learned this in my early 30s, after he had passed. My grandmother told me the night of his wake that he never got over his anger at the Catholic Church for refusing to marry them, since she had already been married once. When I responded, "Wait, what?" she replied, "Oh, you didn't know that Papa wasn't your biological grandfather. I guess you just learned something about yourself today." The second secret I learned just 2 months ago, that Grandma's first husband also was not my biological grandfather. My mother was actually the product of an affair. I learned that one via an Ancestry.com DNA test. My biological grandfather and uncle coincidentally took the test as well and popped up as closely related. My new uncle then contacted me, thinking he had solved a different family mystery of his own. Another story altogether, and I asked my mom if she knew anything about the family. When my mom asked my grandma, my mom didn't know this either. My grandma spilled the beans. My biological grandfather also didn't know. He's an interesting guy. My biological uncle is very nice, and everyone is now cool with it. My mom is going to talk with her newly found brother next weekend. Apparently my great aunt, or something like that, ran away with an American soldier back in the days. She was engaged and on a pre-marriage trip with her fiancé, and while in Germany she met an American soldier and ran away with him. Left her fiancé in Germany to travel back home alone and tell her family that she had eloped. My family cut her off and never spoke to her again. Then, when she was older, she came back home, penniless with her children staying in the US, and wanted to live with her widowed mother who was living on a very small pension. Don't know what happened to her after her mother died. I found out about this last summer at a family gathering. Not sure why they decided to talk about it. Edit, grammar. My uncle is a graphist. That is what he went to prison for. Read it in his diary. My grandmother was the illegitimate daughter of a state assemblyman. I thought that was almost kind of cool until I found out that he marked her as dead on her birth certificate and likely never acknowledged her until her mother and sisters were killed, probably in a flu epidemic. Then, he took her into his home, where she worked as a maid for his cruel wife, and their children, until she met my grandfather at a barn dance and could finally leave the house. She was the sweetest, most generous small town lady out there. I would never have known she had a difficult life in her youth. She never talked about it, and I don't think even her own children knew the whole story until she was in her 90s and genealogy became a hobby for someone in the extended family. I sure do miss her. My father is not my biological father, instead my twin, and I were conceived via sperm donor. My mom let it slip when we were 15. My brother took great interest in this and tried to find out if we had any half siblings. So far we have 23. We're thinking of going camping all together over the summer. I found out that the people I thought were my parents were actually my grandparents. My actual birth mother, the person I was raised to believe was my eldest sister, got pregnant at 14 and had me. She basically wasn't ready/prepared for raising me apparently, and my grandparents adopted me and literally raised me as one of their own. They are my mom and dad and always will be. I was around 10 when I found out. The way I found out about was during a fight between my parents. Drinks were involved, and there was a lot of shouting. I was trying to get them to calm down and stop screaming at each other, and dad let slip. Well, why don't you go ask your real mother? And not gonna lie, the way he said it, filled with venom, hurt. He ducked off then and just left me and mom to talk about it. My mom told the whole deal then. She mentioned that my sire wanted so little to do with me one night that she literally left me on the doorstep and walked over me to go on a night out. Apparently the rest of my mom's family didn't approve of her taking me in, and for that, and a few other reasons, we moved across the country for a fresh start. We don't really talk to them anymore for unrelated reasons. They are not nice people. My sister also has another kid, someone I thought was my nephew, but was actually my half-brother. We were basically raised like brothers. We used to play with my action figures and make elaborate plots and characters that would go on for days. Something I still miss, to be honest. But I don't get to see him much more, since our family doesn't really talk to each other much. I know my birth father's name, but I don't really have any desire to meet him. I'm told that he was a bit of a player, and that I probably have a few more half-brothers all around the country. Well, that's my family secret. Thanks to anyone who read it. Feels better to get that off my chest a bit. When my health started doing poorly, I asked my mom if we had anything going on in the family related to uterus, and she snapped at me saying, I don't know anyone that has any major pain because of periods. Maybe it's just you. I was forced to move out not long after, despite not being able to attend work regularly enough and having trouble with money because of it. A year later, I learned from my aunt that she has endometriosis. One of their sisters had fibromas. She also informed me about an aunt on my dad's side that also had a lot of problems with cysts and endo. The aunt I was talking to is very disliked by my dad because of her health problems. He's always seen her as pathetic and weak. That's why nobody helped me out. I confronted my parents about it. I was told that if I needed help so bad I could go see my aunts. I was later forbidden to talk about my health in the family home. because it would make my dad super angry. I'm still in a blind rage about it. I can't even explain why they didn't tell me and how the duck could they have been so selfish and gross. Edit. Wow. Thanks so much for the support. It feels good to feel I wasn't wrong to think my parents' actions were a little off. Trying to keep up with the comments. My app is blowing up lol.